Have you ever looked at some part of your life, maybe a job you dread, or a relationship that just drains you, and you just have to ask yourself, why am I still here? Gosh, it's one of the most frustrating human questions, isn't it? Well, today we're going to dive right into that because the answer is absolutely fascinating. And here's a spoiler. It has almost nothing to do with your willpower. We all know this feeling, right? You can literally see a better path right there in front of you. You know what you should be doing, but you're stuck, just repeating the same old painful patterns. It feels like self-sabotage. But what if I told you it's not self-sabotage at all? What if it's actually self-preservation? And that right there is the key. This isn't some kind of modern psychological quirk or character flaw. Nope, it's a built-in feature of our ancient brain wiring. Your resistance to change isn't a sign of weakness. It's this incredibly sophisticated 2 million-year-old protection program. And understanding that code, well, that's the first step to finally rewriting it. So, to really understand why we'd ever choose a familiar misery over some unknown happiness, we have to start with the hardware itself, the brain. Because you see, it's not designed for what you probably think it is. This is the fundamental truth, and it's a bit of a mind bender. Your brain is not primarily designed for your happiness or fulfillment. It's a survival machine, and since it's a super expensive organ, metabolically speaking, its number one job above all else is to conserve energy. And it does that by automating pretty much everything it can. Happiness is a great concept, but from a purely biological standpoint, predictability and efficiency win every single time. Okay, so let's break down this internal tug of war. Think of it like this. On one side, you've got your prefrontal cortex. This is your rational, goal-setting, future-planning mind. It's amazing, but it's an energy guzzler. It takes a ton of fuel to run. On the other side, you've got the basal ganglia and the amygdala. That's your autopilot and your alarm system. And these guys, they are incredibly energy efficient. So when you're stressed or tired or overwhelmed, which system do you think your brain is going to default to? Yeah, the one that saves energy. It's not even a fair fight. And this gets to the absolute heart of the problem. Your amygdala is basically your brain's smoke detector. Its only job is to scream fire at the slightest hint of danger. But here's the crucial part. It cannot tell the difference between a lion chasing you and the psychological threat of, say, leaving a bad job. To your amygdala, uncertainty is danger, period. And it triggers the exact same full-blown fight-or-flight biological response. And just look at what that alarm does to us. When our brain perceives a social threat, like rejection, it's not just a little emotional sting. It's a full-on cognitive shutdown. One study found that after experiencing social rejection, participants' reasoning ability, their functional IQ, dropped by 25% immediately. When you're in that state, you're not making smart, rational choices for your future. You're just trying to make the threat stop. So, if our biology is wired to stick with what's familiar, how does that programming get written in the first place? Well, for that we have to look at our personal history and how it builds this concept called your emotional home. This quote from the legendary trauma expert Dr. Bessel van der Kolk just says it all. What researchers have seen, literally on brain scans, is that our repeated experiences physically shape our brain. They carve out neural pathways. So if you grew up in chaos or with constant stress, your brain literally learns to equate that feeling with home. So what exactly is an emotional home? Think of it like the default setting on your nervous system's thermostat. If your childhood was defined by anxiety or instability, your brain literally coded those states as normal and, more importantly, survivable. And because of that, a peaceful, stable, loving environment can feel, well, foreign. And to a survival-oriented brain, foreign feels dangerous. Your body literally doesn't know how to relax into calm because calm isn't what it knows. This is the primitive, brute force logic that's running in the background. It's a survival calculation, not a happiness one. Your brain isn't choosing the pain because it likes it. It's choosing the pain because it has a complete, detailed instruction manual on how to survive it. That unknown alternative? Well, that's a risk your ancient brain is just not willing to take. All right, now this is where the plot really thickens. What if, on some deep, unconscious level, we're actually getting something out of our pain? Now, this is not about blame at all. It's about uncovering a really powerful, hidden dynamic that keeps us stuck. This psychological concept is called secondary gain, and it basically refers to the hidden, usually unconscious, benefits that we get from staying in a difficult situation. Again, this isn't something we do on purpose. It's about deep, unmet needs getting fulfilled, often in a really dysfunctional way.
So what does this actually look like in real life? Well, it can be the attention and sympathy you get from others, which makes you feel cared for. It can be a way to avoid responsibility or the terrifying risk of failing if you try something new. It can even be tangled up in your identity. I mean, if you've always been the anxious one or the one who struggles, who are you without that story? Sometimes healing means losing your primary way of connecting with people or having to face emotions that are even scarier than the one you've been living with.
Now, when you combine these psychological patterns with intense emotional highs and lows, this whole dynamic can become a literal biological addiction. It creates something called a trauma bond, which is this incredibly powerful attachment to the very person or situation causing you distress. And it all boils down to brain chemistry. Let's look at the chemistry here. A toxic cycle of stress and relief creates this potent chemical cocktail in your brain. The unpredictable good moments cause a spike in dopamine, the reward chemical, which makes you crave that next hit of reconciliation. Meanwhile, the stress hormone cortisol keeps you on high alert, just wired. And then, during those brief moments of relief or apology, your brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which cements your connection to the source of your pain. It's a perfect neurological trap. So, knowing all of this, how in the world do we break free? How do you convince an ancient survival machine that peace is not actually a threat? The good news is, it's possible. And it's not about fighting your brain. It's about gently retraining it. This is probably the most important thing to understand in this whole explainer. You cannot think your way out of a biological problem. When your amygdala is screaming and your body is in survival mode, your rational brain is basically offline. So the change has to start at the physical, biological level. You have to teach your nervous system, through your body, that it is safe right now. So here are 3 actionable steps to start building that new home. First, regulate your nervous system. Simple stuff. A brisk walk, deep belly breaths, even just shaking your hands out can send safety signals to your brain. Second, practice micro risks. Take tiny, manageable actions that step just outside your comfort zone. This gives your brain new data points, proving that the unknown is actually survivable. And third, you have to intentionally build the pathways for peace. When you feel a small moment of calm or joy or safety, pause. Take 30 seconds to really notice it and savor it. You are literally carving new neural roads in your brain when you do that. It is so important to look back at your old patterns, not as a failure, but as a strategy that once kept you safe. Be grateful for it. It got you here. But that strategy's expiration date has passed. Survival is just the baseline. It's not the destination. And so that brings us to this final question, a big one to really sit with. For so many of us, our pain has become a huge part of our identity. Answering this question isn't about erasing your past. It's about realizing that your future doesn't have to be a copy of it. It's the first step toward building a new home inside yourself, one where peace finally feels like home.